Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Battle Through the Heavens Part 148 based on novel. So let's start. Yunyun did not extend her hand to receive the chief's jade token as she watched it being suspended in front of her. She was really not interested in this sect chief position. Moreover, due to the shadows from those matters back then, the thing that she was most unwilling to do was to be some chief of a sect. Take it. Xiao Yan urged when he saw the hesitation on Yunyun's face. It was still all right if he did not open his mouth. The moment he did so, however, Yunyun could not resist glaring at him. She gritted her silver teeth and said, "Receive it? And allow you to try and act mightily again?" Xiao Yan was involuntarily a little embarrassed when he heard this. He said, "It has been so many years, yet you still remember these matters. No one was right or wrong in the incident back then. Although I have destroyed the Misty Cloud sect, the Misty Cloud sect has also caused my Xiao clan to suffer great losses. I am aware that this matter is unrelated to you, but I must still account for certain things. I do not know about all of these great reasons." Yunyun's eyes reddened a little when she mentioned this matter. She was also aware that Xiao Yan was not wrong in that matter when looking from his perspective. However, the Misty Cloud sect was after all a place that had groomed her for many years. Yet, it was disbanded back then just because this fellow had said so. If you wish to find a quiet place to stay, you will not achieve true peace by living under someone else like in the past. Additionally, you have received the inheritance of Granny Hua. If you do not take this position, it will end up causing the flower sect to ultimately descend into an internal fight. I think that Granny Hua would be unwilling to see such a thing, right? Xiao Yan asked softly. Yunyun was startled. She hesitated for a moment before finally nodding her head. After which, she raised her head and looked towards the white-haired old woman in the sky. She spoke respectfully, "First Elder, Yunyun can temporarily take the position of the sect chief. You can just inform me if you feel that there is a more suitable person." "Ha ha, you can be rest assured that this old woman greatly trusts the eyes of the previous sect chief. Since she had passed on all her do chi to you, it is likely that you are the perfect candidate in her heart." The white-haired old woman laughed. Hua Jin's face became dark and volatile when she heard the words of this old woman. A moment later, she spoke in a deep voice, "First Elder, I have worked hard for many years in order to get the Profound Sky Sect to show signs of joining hands with our flower sect. Now that the sect chief is changed and that Xiao Yang had even injured Yao Liang, lover, I think that this cooperation will not only end but the Profound Sky Sect would also not let this matter rest, given the way they do things." The threat in Hua Jin's words were also quite obvious. If the chief was changed to Yunyun, not only would they be unable to cooperate with the Profound Sky Sect, but it would instead cause the Profound Sky to view the Flower Sect with enmity. The white-haired old woman knitted her brows slightly. Although the Flower Sect and Profound Sky Sect were equally ranked as the two sects, the former's strength was not as strong as the latter. Additionally, the Profound Sky Sect was really too strong. It had been expanding rapidly during these years. The sect had numerous number of experts. An ordinary faction would not dare to offend them even a little. This Yao Hua Liangjun was a member of the Profound Sky Sect. Originally, they planned on getting Yao Hua Liangjun and Hua Jin to marry to improve the relationship between both sects and hence form an alliance. The Flower Sect and the Profound Sky Sect might be called the two sects, but there were many factions on the Central Plains which could match these two sects. However, these factions did not wish to be as publicized as them. Nevertheless, the foundation of these sects would not be any weaker than the two sects. If one accompanies a tiger, one will ultimately end up being its meal. Xiao Yang smiled slightly. He ignored Yao Hua Liangjuan's densely cold eyes as he spoke faintly, "First Elder, I think that you should be clearer than me when it comes to the way the Profound Sky Sect does things. If the two sects form an alliance, it is likely very difficult for a true equilibrium to be reached. Sooner or later, a situation where the guest will try to take over the position of the owner will occur. At that time, the Flower Sect will likely become another branch sect of the Profound Sky Sect." "Xiao Yang, you should stop uttering nonsense," Hua Jin cried out. Her expression changed upon hearing this. Xiao Yan completely ignored this woman. His eyes looked towards the white-haired old woman and said, "If First Elder do not mind, my Falling Star Pavilion can perhaps be a reliable ally of the Flower Sect in the future. I'm sure that First Elder will not have any doubt given the trustworthiness of my teacher, right? Yao Zunz's reputation is extremely great. Who in the Central Plains do not know about his trustworthiness? Naturally, no one can doubt him." The white-haired old woman smiled. Immediately, she nodded. Her eyes were a little stern as she looked towards Hua Jin. She spoke in a deep voice, "From now onwards, Yun is the chief of the Flower Sect. There shall be no more argument." This First Elder had made up her mind once Xiao Yang's word sounded. If it was in the past, a Falling Star Pavilion did not possess the weight to cause her to ignore everything else. However, things were currently different. The Falling Star Pavilion had produced an elite Bansheng like Yao Chen. Its strength would definitely soar. At that time, even the Profound Sky Sect will not dare to do anything to it. One was an old faction which had some ill intentions and would sooner or later bite at them. Another was a new and rising faction that possessed an enormous potential and trustworthiness. It was actually not difficult to choose between the two. Seeing the white-haired old woman hardening her heart with the intention of allowing Yun to be the sect chief, the expression of Hua Jin also became ugly. However, she did not continue to say anything. She also understood that it was pointless to say anything now. Since First Elder has made such a choice, this venerable self can only hope that you will not end up regretting in the future. Yao Hua Liangjuan's expression was also quite ugly. Today, he had not only lost face but had even ruined a big matter. It would definitely not be easy for him to report this matter when he returned this time around. "You need not be concerned about this matter," the white-haired old woman waved her hand and spoke faintly. The corner of Yao Hua Liangjuan's mouth twitched slightly. The matter had already been decided and it was pointless for him to remain here and embarrass himself. Immediately, he swung his sleeve, turned around and rushed out of the Flower Sect. When he turned around, his eyes were filled with a sinister and vicious expression as they looked at Xiao Yan. Clearly, after having lost a great amount of face today, he had completely hated Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan merely smiled in the face of his eyes. A 6-star Dozun was indeed powerful, but he was currently not an ordinary person either. Even if this fellow wanted to use some tricks, Xiao Yan would not be afraid of him. Hua Jin saw Yao Hua Liangjian left in a furious manner. She wanted to retain him but was unable to say anything. After clenching her teeth, she did not follow him. Instead, she turned around and rushed towards a mountain, vanishing in the blink of an eye. The eyes of the white-haired old woman slowly swept over the entire place when she saw these two people leaving. She softly said, "From today onwards, Yun shall be the new chief of our Flower Sect. All the disciples of the Flower Sect must obey her orders. Otherwise, they will be punished according to the sect rules. Understood?" When the voice of the old woman sounded, those densely packed Flower Sect disciples on the square also hurriedly knelt down. A respectful voice resounded over the place. "Greeting to the sect chief." Xiao Yan smiled slightly as he watched the densely packed disciples kneeling down. He looked at Yun, who was feeling some panic, and said, "Congratulations, Sect Chief Yun." Yun rolled her eyes towards him. She immediately sighed in a distant manner. Each time this fellow appeared, it would cause some changes in her life. He is really an enemy. The ceremony for Yun obtaining the chief position was not very grand. However, with that first elder of the Flower Sect presiding over it, everything was done in a standard manner. After the ceremony was over, Yun had formally become the next sect chief of the Flower Sect. Xiao Yan was not in a hurry to leave after the ceremony was over. Instead, he got Yun to help him find a quiet room. The hidden resistance within the bone-chilling flame had already completely disappeared. It was the best opportunity to swallow and refine it. Moreover, this Flower Sect also possessed quite a number of experts present. This was indeed not a bad place to refine the bone-chilling flame. With the increase in the strength of the experts whom Xiao Yan had come into contact with, he needed to raise his strength as quickly as possible. Although he no longer needed to be afraid when facing an expert like Yaohua Liangjun, his enemy was not Yaohua Liangjun but the Hall of Soul. Xiao Yan had already witnessed the strength of the 9th Tianzuan and 8th Tianzuan of the Hall of Soul. He clearly understood in his heart that it would likely be an intense big battle should he meet any one of those two. Most importantly, even after the intense fight, his chances of victory was not high. Although Yao Lao had advanced to an elite Ban Shen, it was impossible for Xiao Yang to always follow behind Yao Lao. Therefore, raising his own strength was the most important thing. A faint fragrance was being emitted from a cauldron within the quiet room, causing a smoke to linger within it. When one inhaled a gentle breath, all of one's distracting thoughts would disappear from one's mind at this moment. Xiao Yang was quite satisfied with this quiet room. He nodded slightly before sitting down on a stone bed. However, he did not immediately attempt to swallow and refine the bone-chilling flame. His use of the Annihilation Fire Lotus when fighting Yaohua Liangjun earlier had exhausted quite a lot of his Do Qi. Refining the bone-chilling flame was not a relaxing task. He naturally had to be well prepared. This training continued for around half an hour before Xiao Yan's tightly shut eyes were finally slowly opened. His eyes had once again regained its calmness. At a glance, they appeared just like an abyss that was without the slightest fluctuation. A mouthful of turbid air was slowly spat out from his throat. A faint glow also surfaced on Xiao Yang's face. Both of his eyes were blinked and traces of dense white flame spread out from deep within his eyes. In the blink of an eye, both of his eyes were already covered by the denser white flame. Refinement, begin. Xiao Yan muttered softly in his mouth. The seal formed by his hand changed. Both of his eyes were slowly shut. Following the shutting of his eyes, the temperature of the room also rose slowly. Xiao Yan's heart possessed quite a great amount of anticipation towards the refinement this time around. Although a heavenly flame of the bone-chilling flame ranking was no longer considered some sumptuous meal after he had swallowed the 3,000 burning flame, it was also not something that he could underestimate. Most importantly, the current flame mantra was already at the DI class high level. He wondered if, after swallowing the bone-chilling flame, it could leap and become a Qian class Qi method. The fragrance from sandalwood lingered over the quiet room, which had an unusually dry and hot air. High temperature spread and even the space itself formed some distortion. At a glance, it gave one an illusionary feeling. Xiao Yan was seated on a stone bed within the quiet room. His eyes were tightly shut and waves of frighteningly high temperature continued to spread from his body. There was vaguely some dense white fire seedlings fleeing from the pores all over his body. These flames lingered over the place and wrapped around Xiao Yan's body. Xiao Yan's expression was calm and without any ripples. He did not sense the change around him. At this moment, his mind was completely immersed within the strange heavenly flame merger within his body. Perhaps it was because Xiao Yan was currently in control of 3 types of heavenly flames, but his current refinement of the bone-chilling flame was not as difficult as he had imagined. Under the intense burning of the 3,000 lotus heart flame, the bone-chilling flame already began to vaguely show signs of merging. Although this sign was extremely slow, everything progressed smoothly. There was no unusual changes that was difficult to control appearing. Based on this speed, if nothing unexpected occurred midway, Xiao Yan had the confidence that he could successfully refine the bone-chilling flame within a month. At that time, his body would be in possession of 4 types of heavenly flames. If word of this mysterious thing was to spread, it would likely attract the envy of quite a number of experts. It was already a great blessing for an ordinary person to obtain even one heavenly flame. This so-called 4 types was indeed a little bizarre. After all, even if one put aside the difficulty of finding a heavenly flame, it was likely that no one would dare to keep 4 types of heavenly flame that were filled with destructive strength within their body at the same time. Such an act was basically no different from swallowing a couple of bombs into one's stomach. It was a suicidal act in the eyes of many people. Fortunately, for Xiao Yan, who possessed the flame mantra, this kind of thing, which was impossible in the eyes of others, had become a foundation that allowed him to become a top expert. While Xiao Yan's training gradually progressed on the right track, the temperature of the quiet room also began to increase. At the end, Those slowly lingering sandalwood fragrance emitted a puff and directly turned into dust. Under that temperature, even an ordinary elite dozone would not be able to stay for long. If one was to absorb the wild and violent energy that permeated the air, it was sufficient to cause the do qi within one's body to become violent and uncontrolled. Following the flow of time, the aura that spread from Xiao Yan's body also slowly became stronger. Waves after waves of majestic do qi spread out from his body like a great ocean wave. It even brought about some vague crashing sound in the process. With the merger of the bone-chilling flame and the 3000 lotus heart flame, the enormous energy hidden within it had transformed into a pure do qi that poured into Xiao Yang's veins after refinement, causing his aura to slowly rise. Half a month passed by in the blink of an eye under this quiet refinement. After half a month of refinement, the temperature within the quiet room had already been raised until a terrifying level. Moreover, due to this place being completely sealed, it had ended up becoming like a steamer. Qi wave churned and the hot temperature caused numerous dark black cracked lines to appear in the sky. Some stone tables and chairs within the quiet room had gradually melted, turning into liquid that slowly dripped down and flowed within the quiet room. Occasionally, an air bubble would appear along with a slight muffled sound. Nearly half of the stone bed had also melted under this high temperature. Xiao Yan, who was seated at its middle, however, did not show any signs of awakening. His breathing was calm. The hot air, which would cause an ordinary person to turn into ashes upon inhalation, became just like two air dragons that followed his nostrils and continuously enter his body. Clatter! The stone table melted and liquid dripped quietly. A slight V-sound appeared within the quiet room with a rhythm. That stone bed's human figure appeared to have become a statue. It did not react even a little. If it was not because one could still sense a vast and mighty aura that continuously rose, it was likely that anyone would treat the hot wave like a stone statue. The concept of time would become extremely blurry while one trained. Hence, another 10 days had passed while Xiao Yang was seated like a statue. Flower fragrance covered a quiet courtyard. These beautiful and colorful flowers decorated the place until it was full of life. There was a stone pavilion within this courtyard. 3 figures were present within it. However, at this moment, the eyes of these 3 people were staring at a tightly shut stone door at the end of the courtyard. It is almost a month, why has Xiao Yang not come out? Nailan Yangran looked at the stone door. Her brows were knitted as she softly commented. Yun shook her head slightly and said, "There is no need to worry. With his ability, it is likely that nothing will happen. It is not rare for an elite dozun to undertake a couple of months or half a year retreat." Although she spoke in this manner, there was still a faint trace of worry between Yun's brows. If it was an ordinary retreat, she would naturally not be worried. However, ever since Xiao Yang had entered the quiet room, the energy that spread from it became increasingly hot and violent. That feeling was as though the interior of the quiet room was brewing a volcano that was about to erupt. This kind of prelude really caused one to feel uneasy. This kind of unexpected change naturally also stirred the attention of some elders within the flower sect. Although they did not say anything, Yun was aware that their hearts were also worried. After having experienced the terrifying fire lotus that Xiao Yang had used back then, they were really a little afraid that Xiao Yang would cause another earth-shaking destruction and turn this flower sect into ruins. This fellow really does not allow others to relax. Yun involuntarily rubbed her brows as her heart laughed bitterly. In order to calm the worry of these elders during this period of time, she had did quite a lot of talking. However, this could not go on forever. The energy that was spreading from the quiet room was becoming increasingly violent. At that time, it was likely that even First Elder would adopt some measures. Compared to the worry of the other 2, Qing Lin merely leaned lazily on a pillar. Her soft, seemingly boneless waist and her body was leaned into an alluring arc that vaguely emitted a kind of lazy enchantment. She was born with unusual eyes. Naturally, she was aware of Xiao Yang's current condition. Hence, she was not worried for no reason. It seems that things are going to be the same again, forget it, let's leave. After waiting quietly for over an hour, Yun looked at the sky before helplessly getting up and said, "What is it?" Nailan Yangran also nodded. She was just about to turn around when a tremor was suddenly felt under her feet, causing her to stumble a little. She hurriedly grabbed the stone pillar beside her. A shock filled her pretty face. It is transmitted from the quiet room. Yun also paused her footsteps. She sensed a little before her pretty eyes suddenly turned towards the quiet room. Having received the inheritance of Granny Hua, her strength was soaring rapidly. The moment the tremor was transmitted over earlier, she clearly sensed that the quiet room, which had been silent for a long time, suddenly emitting an extremely intense energy fluctuation. Is he about to exit his retreat? Yun muttered softly in her mouth. She softly said, "The activity seems to be a little big, let's leave this place first." After uttering those words, Yun pressed her foot on the ground. She body rushed to the mid-air. After which, Qinglin and Nailan Yangran hurriedly followed. They stood in the sky. Only then did they see an extremely hot fire pillar slowly curling and rising from the top of the quiet room. Bang! The three figures had just rushed to the sky when the roof of the quiet room below suddenly exploded apart. Hot smoke spread out, causing the temperature all around the place to rise rapidly. When the quiet room was blasted open, a vast and mighty aura that had been quiet for an entire month also slowly spread. Soon after, a clear and long roar suddenly resounded from within the quiet room and charged directly towards the clouds. The roar contained an unusually vast and mighty do qi. Hence, that roar also appeared like thunder that continuously reverberated across the sky, spreading to every corner of the flower sect. Human figures continued to rush out from all over the flower sect when this roar sounded. Numerous figures stood in the sky. Their eyes were shocked as they looked towards the direction that the roar had originated from. The surprise within the eyes of some of the observant individuals turned into shock when they sensed that aura. This is Xiao Yan? His aura, why has it suddenly strengthened so greatly? The strength of this aura has likely reached the peak of the 4-star level. This fellow, has he eaten some special pill? His strength had actually soared to such an extent within a short 1 month. Quite a number of elders from the flower sect involuntarily inhaled a breath of cool air when they sensed the strength of this aura. The rate at which this strength was raised was really too frightening. A full 2 stars. If one was to train normally, it would likely take 10 years of effort to achieve it. Yet, Xiao Yan was actually able to complete it within a short 1 month. He is indeed worthy of being Yao Chen's disciple. He's definitely extraordinary. That white-haired old woman, who was the first elder of the flower sect, nodded slightly and muttered while she stood in the sky. The roaring thunder ultimately reached a point where it was about to scatter. At the moment it did so, layers of thick dark clouds suddenly appeared in the blue sky. Wild wind blew across the sky in an unceasing manner. This sudden scene caused everyone to be stunned. Their faces were at a loss. Unusual natural phenomenon. The first elder of the flower sect was also slightly stunned by this scene. A moment later, she appeared to have recalled something. Her eyes suddenly turned towards the direction of the quiet room. A disbelief finally surged onto her eyes. This is the birth of a Tien class Qi method? When it came to unusual natural phenomenon, they could generally be summarized into 3 types of situation. One was when a high-tier medicinal pill was born. It would attract the pill lightning. The second was when one trained to a certain level. It would attract such a situation. However, this was usually rarely seen. This was because someone who could reach such a level was considered an extremely rare existence even in the entire Do Qi continent. The third possibility was the birth of a Tien class Qi method or Tien class Do skill. This birth usually did not mean the reappearance of a Qi method or Do skill. Instead, it was a birth from nothing. An example was creation. Only when some Tien class Qi method or Do skill was being created would such an unusual natural phenomenon be attracted. The current sky was not covered by pill fragrance. Clearly, it was not the birth of a high-tier medicinal pill. The second possibility could be directly eliminated. Although Xiao Yang was powerful, it was far from sufficient to cause an unusual natural phenomenon. Since this was the case, only the last possibility matched the situation. However, it must be said that this white-haired old woman was indeed experienced. Only a couple of breaths' time had passed, but she had already managed to ascertain the origin of the unusual natural phenomenon through her various guesses. Creating one's own Tien class Chi method or Do skill. The white-haired old woman was startled as she watched the quiet room that was emitting a white flame in the distance. Even with her calmness, her face was currently filled with a grave and shocked expression. Creating one's own Tien class Chi method or Do skill. Just how many people in this current continent had the ability to achieve this? Based on common sense, forget about Xiao Yan, even Yao Chen, who had advanced into the Ban Shen class, would likely not possess such an ability. Yet, regardless of how great a disbelief was present in her heart, the situation that appeared in front of her caused her to have no choice but to accept this harsh reality. A moment later, she withdrew her emotion. A bitter smile surfaced on her face. It was indeed the case of the younger generation surpassing the old. Compared to such an outstanding young man, old fellows like themselves could only feel ashamed. No wonder he can be accepted by Yao Chen as a disciple. Such a talent is indeed rare. The white-haired old woman sighed softly. Her eyes flickered slightly. After this matter, her heart had truly begun to think highly of Xiao Yang. Although she was considered quite polite to Xiao Yang in the past, that was after all on the account of Yao Lao's face. Xiao Yan being able to defeat Yao Huoliangjun with his 2-star Dozun strength had caused her to be surprised, but that was it. Yao Huoliangjun might appear strong in the eyes of others, but he did not pose the slightest threat. If it was not because Yao Huoliangjun was a member of the Profound Sky Sect, it was likely that she would not have allowed this fellow to leave smoothly back then. Although she had only think highly of Xiao Yang in the past because of Yao Lao, it had completely changed at this moment. Creating one's own Tien class Chi method or Do skill. This ability was something that even she could not compare with. Xiao Yang had given her too many surprises. It was to an extent that caused her, as the first elder of the Flower Sect, to threat him seriously. This person's future achievement will definitely be extraordinary. Yunyun's good relationship with him is also beneficial for the Flower Sect. The white-haired old woman smiled faintly when she thought of this. She muttered to herself, "Senior sister, your eyesight is indeed extremely accurate." Seeing the layers of dark cloud spread apart in the sky, all the disciples from the Flower Sect had stunned faces. This change in the weather was far too unpredictable. Of course, there were also some shrewd people whose eyes turned towards the direction where Xiao Yang was undertaking a retreat after muttering for a moment. Such an unusual phenomenon had occurred the moment Xiao Yang was about to leave his retreat. It was likely that no one would believe that these two were unrelated. Bang! The quiet room once again trembled in front of the countless number of gazes. A hot chi pillar shot out from within. A human figure was standing steadily with a royal demeanor on the top of this pillar. The one who had appeared was naturally Xiao Yang, who had undertaken a 1-month retreat. At this moment, he was also slightly startled when he saw the unusual phenomenon in the sky. A moment later, he appeared to have understood something. He frowned slightly and gently waved his sleeve. After waving his sleeve, an invisible spiritual ripple immediately spread out from between his brows. When this ripple spread, the layers of dark cloud in the sky also ceased churning. After which, they slowly scattered amidst numerous stunned gazes. The darkness in the sky also gradually disappeared after the final dark cloud disappeared. A warm sunlight once again scattered down and shone on this mountain range that was covered by a sea of flower. Has it evolved to a Tien class Chi method? Xiao Yang stared at his own palm after the dark cloud scattered. Immediately, he shut his eyes. A thought passed through his mind and the flame mantra was once again circulated. When the flame mantra was circulating, the natural energy within 1,000 feet radius suddenly surged over intensely like floodwaters. Immediately, waves after waves of shocking energy continuously poured into Xiao Yang's body in front of numerous stunned eyes. Xiao Yang's body did not reject these natural energy that were filled with a great amount of impurities. Any impurities would be immediately turned into nothing while the heavenly flame rose. The rate at which dope chi circulated within his body was also over 10 times more rapid than before. This kind of mad rapidness did not only show itself on the circulating speed. There was also a drastic change in terms of absorption, refinement, accommodation, and other aspects when compared with before. Based on Xiao Yan's current condition, it was likely that he would no longer end up needing to immediately swallow medicinal pills to replenish his Do Qi like in the past should he use the Annihilation Fire Lotus. The current him could really be described as having the capital to squander. A mouthful of turbid air that contained a lot of impurities moved along Xiao Yan's throat and was exhaled. When he sensed an unprecedented feeling of being filled, a joyous smile that could not be suppressed involuntarily surfaced on his face. He might possess the ability to fight across levels, but all of these required the exhaustion of an extremely vast amount of Do Qi. Hence, he had to be careful each time he used them. He was afraid that someone might take advantage of the opening after he used it and enter a weakened state. Fortunately, this kind of worry would likely rarely occur from now onwards unless it was some special circumstances. It can be considered to be a Qian-class low-rank Qi method. However, it should have only just broken through the D-class high level. It is rumored that when a true Qian-class Qi method is used, it would immediately be able to absorb all of the energy within 1,000 feet for one's own use. What I have activated earlier does have some gap when compared to it. Xiao Yan revealed an expression of deep thought. It was unexpected that evolving to the Qian class would actually be this harsh. Even the bone-chilling flame was only able to get flame mantra to reach the quasi-Qian class Qi method level. Fortunately, regardless of whether it was quasi-Qian class or a true Qian class, it had after all reached that level. This kind of transformation would also be a drastic one. My strength is currently also at the 4-star Dozun level. Xiao Yang sensed the interior of his body. The swallowing of the bone-chilling flame this time around had actually only allowed him to raise his strength by 2-star. Although he was mentally prepared, this kind of result still caused Xiao Yang to be quite dismayed. If other elite Dozuns were to be aware of this thought of his, it was likely that they would immediately spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. 10 years or even decades of training was completed by him within a short 1 month. If he was still dispirited because of it, they would likely have to directly find a stone and knock their heads to death. 4-star, so be it. After feeling despair for a short moment, Xiao Yang swiftly withdrew his mind. This result was something that he had expected. At this moment, he had already swallowed 4 types of heavenly flames. Although the strength of a heavenly flame was great, anything that was eaten in large numbers would likely result in it being unable to fully unleash its effect like before. Based on Xiao Yang's guess, if he was to swallow a heavenly flame that was ranked 15th and higher at this moment, the effect would likely be extremely weak. It would have difficulty raising his strength by even a star. It looks like I must specifically find those heavenly flames that are ranked at the front when swallowing heavenly flames in the future. Xiao Yan was speechless when he thought until this point. A heavenly flame was it itself rare. Those ranked at the front were extremely rare. Even if one was to find it, attempting to capture and refine it was also extremely difficult. Based on his guess, it appeared that Xiao Yan's path of swallowing heavenly flames in the future would become incomparably difficult. Xiao Yan smiled bitterly, shaking his head and sighed. All he could do was to accept his fate. Although raising his strength by 2-star did not meet the standards of his discerning eyes, a small mosquito was also meat. If he was to use the Skyfire 3 mysterious change with his current strength, he would no longer need to rely on the Annihilation Fire Lotus to battle with Yaohua Liangjun should he end up meeting the latter. Even in a head-on collision, the advantage that Yaohua Liangjun could gain would likely be quite small. Forget about that Yaohua Liangjun, even if I meet that so-called 9th Tianzuan of the Hall of Soul, I will also be able to fight with him and withdraw in one piece. Xiao Yang involuntarily sighed in relief when he thought of this. Ever since he had witnessed the strength of 9th Tianzuan and the others back then, he had been vaguely feeling some pressure within his heart. This fellow was merely just a 9th Tianzuan. Above him definitely had a 7th Tianzuan, 6th Tianzuan and even the 1st Tianzuan. Fortunately, his current strength had already soared by a certain extent. He might not dare to say that he could be unafraid of these people just because of it, but his heart would at least feel more at ease. There was no need for him to be constantly nervous. Moreover, even if he could not defeat them when they fought in the future, he would definitely let the other party suffer. Just how long are you going to continue dreaming here? A gentle voice resounded helplessly beside Xiao Yan's ear while he was in deep thought. Xiao Yan lifted his head, only to see a beautiful face appearing in front of him. There was even some rebuking expression on her pretty face. It was extremely alluring. Xiao Yan smiled at Yun only to suddenly extend his hand and grabbed Yun's hand. Seeing Xiao Yan acting in this manner in public, Yun's extremely beautiful face became an embarrassing red. She knitted her brows and spoke in an embarrassed and angry manner. "Little bastard, could you have really gotten addicted to acting like a rogue? This video will end here.